Hey guys, today we are diving into a question that we got. And if you haven't met us or you don't know who I am, I'm Crystal. I'm a hiring and automation expert. And today we're going to answer a question. And if you have any questions regarding hiring, automation, sales, stuff like that, definitely fill out the form and you're going to be able to submit those questions to us. And we can go ahead and go on live and answer those questions or create a little bit more of a training to help you guys out in that process. So let me go ahead. I am working with the new streaming software this morning, so hopefully it goes good, but we will know by the end. All right, so let's go ahead and attempt to share my screen. All right, so let's go ahead. All right, so hopefully you guys are able to see my screen. Let's see. Yay! I did it. All right, so let me go ahead and go back. Perfect. All right, so if you haven't seen it yet, let me go ahead and get that question for you. All right, just 1 second. So let me see if I could change my screen. 1 second. Let's go ahead and go back to entire screen. There we go. Let me just make it easier. Don't mind the craziness. All right, so we had a question from Karen. She has a contractor-based business, also has a referral agency. She does have require her contractors to be licensed, insured, and she pays by a percentage. So her question or scenario that she needs assistance with, let me go ahead and read this so you guys can kind of get a feel for what it is she's going through in the scenario and how we can go ahead and use our framework, the F diet, which I will go into in just a second, on how to help come up with solutions to go ahead and address problems like this in your business. And it could relate to any industry, any business. The framework wise, it's just a matter of coming up with things for different segments of the framework to make sure that it's going to work and eliminate those problems with your workers in your business. So let's dive into this. So she has one cleaner and she would like to get a higher percentage. She's probably one of her best cleaners, gets good feedback, reviews, will take any job I offer her, but she can be most unreliable at times. From time to time, issues with picking up her daughter after school happens or dentist appointments that are in the city she moved from last year. And then she either is canceling, wants to reschedule, or asks if someone else can take that job for her or days she needs to pick up her daughter. She's a super hard worker, but she does give me a lot of headaches from time to time. Since they're not employees, we can't threaten them to knock down their tier. How would you handle it if you had a cleaner like this that is all A's until something in her personal schedule goes awry? And then she's creating havoc with her work schedule. She can make good money if she could actually stick to 5 days a week. She could make over $4,000 a month, but for some reason, with personal issues happening on her end, and whoever's responsible for picking up her daughter, it falls on her. And then she's not making much money because she's changing her schedule at the last minute. She is also going to get bonded and insured. Sounds good, as we mentioned we were going to use her question on our Q&A today. And then she wanted to also add to it. So if she increased her commitment 10%, that would mean that she would be making more, working less hours, and still the original income. So basically, there's not an incentive for her to work more hours if she has a higher commission. So there's been 2 or 3 times that she's gotten paid between $1,100 to $1,300 a week, but since then and even now, she's generally between $600 and $700 a week. So there's this scenario that we got submitted to today. Fill out that form. I'm going to see all of your answers right here, and we're going to review them if we want to address them in a live Q&A, or if we want to create a tutorial, or if it's just really wonky, it's not planned, it may go into the not planned section. So definitely make sure you fill out that down below. All right, so now that we've gone over this scenario, let's go into our framework. So it's called DIET. What does that stand for? It stands for follow through, deal breaker, interview questions, expectations, and training. So any problem that you're having in business, you could typically solve it with addressing and assessing the FDIET framework. So if you were to have a small problem, you would mostly be assessing your expectations and training. If you had a medium or large problem, you would definitely want to assess all of them. So what does that mean? Well, you're going to ask yourself in each category, is there something that you could improve on, modify, make clearer, add to, take away from, delegate, add a new policy on, or maybe switch a role? So if you're circling back to that, you're asking yourself, okay, so is there anything I can improve on with my follow through? Is there anything that I could improve on with my deal breakers? And again, so let's go back to the follow through, because that's kind of getting a little too fast right there. So you're asking yourself all of these for the follow through. And then you're going to go to the deal breakers, and then you're going to ask yourself all of these again. And then you're going to go back to the interview questions, and you're like assessing again. You're going to repeat that process for the whole entire FDIET for every single problem that you have in your business. You need to look at it and then assess it. So if we were in, let's kind of like pull this together for a second. So actually, before I dive into that, if you were to, let's go over here. So you have a whole bunch of problems, right? So you have like no shows, no car, don't clock in, don't work out, more hours, call out, complaints. Okay, so let's just say we're going to look at kind of like a broader spectrum of like a scenario, and then we'll put it into action in a second. But okay, all the problems right here, you of course would want to list out all your problems, but let's say they have no car. Okay, so is there anything you can, improve on, modify, add to, delegate, switch roles, or anything when it comes to your follow through? What about deal breakers, interview questions, expectations? Again, so for no car, maybe for your follow through, you can go ahead and have your team follow through with their application and the qualification. So a lot of times somebody may apply and you're like, okay, they got filtered out, it's not qualified, but sometimes admin or a worker can override that. Maybe they're pulling from your not qualified list. So you would want to make sure that your team is, following through with those deal breakers that you really set. Maybe that's a deal breaker you will not bend on. And then maybe the deal breaker on your application could be no car. And then for your interview questions, you can confirm verbally that they have a reliable car. And then there's nothing really for expectations or training afterwards. So it's not that you'll have something in every single category, but it's definitely something where you're asking each and every category to see if there's something that you could improve on, modify, and so on and so forth. So let's do another example where they're wanting more hours. Again, you're going to assess all of the categories. And so maybe for this one, you're like, okay, so wanting more hours. So maybe on the application, you can have a deal breaker for the hours, right? So we're kind of tying in both of these right here. So a deal breaker, then following through, your team's following through with that. You could also, possibly confirm the amount of hours during you. And again, you're going to have your own. It's not a one size fits all. If it's a big problem, again, you would want to have it in more areas of your solution. And then again, let's say calling out, again, hopefully you're getting like how we're doing this, right? There's a problem, you're assessing each one of these, and then you're coming up with something for each section if you can, but if you can't, that's totally fine. Just you want to still ask yourself and go through that process. So let's say again, calling out. Well, for your follow through, what can you do to improve, modify, so on and so forth? Well, you could require a doctor's note, and then you could write them up with a verbal warning, if it's their second attempt, whatever, so forth. You can create more of a follow through for that. So a lot of people come up with whatever it is that they need to do, but the reality of them following through with actually writing somebody up is very slim. So it's really important to make sure that, if you had this issue, again, you're following through with certain things. Maybe having a scenario on calling on the application. And again, you're putting it into literally like a legit scenario and giving them like 3 different scenario options that are very clear on which one's like right, which one's wrong, and then making sure that you are setting those as a deal breaker if they answer incorrectly or a scenario that you wouldn't really like to see happen. And then all of those deal breakers add up when you're talking about the problems in your deal breakers, and it creates a lot of additional filters on your application. So interview questions, you could come up with another scenario, but it's not necessary. So we put none on this example. And then expectations, you would really want to, so keep in mind, this is something that you could set with contractors, you could set with employees. All of these you could set with contractors or employees. You would just kind of switch out the training aspect. So training, if you work with contractors, just don't call it training, but in your head, think of like, hey, is there any like educational email content, educational conversation, something like that. It doesn't have to be training. It could be like an agency policy, so on and so forth. So adapt this towards your situation, your business, and make sure that, it works. So expectations, making sure that you're setting any of the expectations with that worker. So for example, a call out policy, and maybe if it's such a huge problem, you're repeating that expectation monthly. Maybe it's in a team meeting. Maybe they have to sign something. Maybe they have a video that they have to watch like every quarter. So coming up, if it's an expectation that is a huge problem that's still happening, you need to increase the frequency of that expectation, how often you're bringing it up or whatever it is. So if you have, for instance, with Karen's situation where she's having a lot of last minute changes to the schedule, you could be sending out an email just kind of recapping certain parts of the contract and kind of create it into like not really like a strict way, engaging way, or incentivize them in some way. It could be a compliment, doesn't have to be financial. It could be you're doing great. I really appreciate. I have seen for the last 2 weeks you've been on time and you've had so many great reviews. I just really want to let you know that you're doing a great job. Again, that could be an incentive. And then letting them have that expectation again on a reoccurring basis. Again, it could be an email, it could be a text message, it could be a video, whatever it is, to help and adapt for your business. So for example, again, circling back to this specific scenario, you could also have them sign policy changes, or doing 2-week schedule, printing it out and putting it on there in advance. For training, you could show them in the training physically how to do like a test submission to call out, whatever it is, like whatever your process is. Again, you could like show them, like physically show them, not just tell them. So that could be part of your training and so on and so forth. So let's circle it back and think about Karen's problem. So one thing just off the top of my head is that expectations is a two-way street. So it could be expectations for the business owner, or it could be expectations for the workers, for admin, for anybody, right? So make sure that you are assessing like realistic expectations of scenarios. So for an example, let me go ahead and just share this a little bit bigger. And hopefully you guys are seeing this. I think you are. Okay. Hopefully you are. All right, so I'm trying to go bigger screen. Let's see if it works. All right. So for example, I have kids. I work from home. I like working from home. Reality is of kids going to school every single week and there being a COVID exposure every single time. So let me put this into perspective, just for some people who their kids are older or what, maybe they don't have kids. Let's create some expectations for business owners when it comes to kids. Kids are always number one over work. They're always going to be number one over work. You have to adapt if somebody is a single parent, if they're responsible for picking up their kids, so on and so forth. You have to accept these expectations of parents, single moms. If that is your demographic for your candidate, your ideal worker, you need to have that expectation set already in general. If you have a different demographic, again, it's not going to happen as often, but again, you still have to like have that expectation. If you do hire a single mother or something like that, there are so many scenarios that are happening on a regular basis for schools right now. So let me give you an example of what our week-to-week schedule kind of looks like for school right now. Okay, I have a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 10-year-old. I have it's a lot of kids. To me, it's a lot of kids. Okay. Every single time in class, there is an exposure or a close contact. We're getting an email from the schools right now to where we have to get our kids tested within 5 days of a negative COVID test, or they're going to be out of school for 10 days. And that is happening a lot. I'm not kidding. That is happening a lot. And we have to have expectations, especially for parents and people with kids, especially, again, if you're single moms, somebody else isn't able to miss work. Sometimes it does fall on the mom, and it really sucks right now because that's reality. It's going to happen, and we can't really prevent that. We have to work with them, maybe set better expectations, not only for the business owner, but also maybe for the clients. Again, if I would definitely have, like a spiel already pre-written, ready to go. If you have, workers who need to call out because of a kid, I would also, prepare to have more of a backup cleaners or whatnot. Again, I'm not saying that it's okay to call out and it's okay to do all these things at all, but it's definitely something that you want to like anticipate for certain things that you can't control. And then, okay, so this scenario, again, she's great cleaner. Again, let's circle back to her scenario right here. Okay. She's unreliable at times, but it seems like it's predominantly picking up her daughter after school when somebody else can't pick her up, or dentist appointments. So I think one of the solutions, just right off the top, again, is expectations. I would definitely say for having better expectations of a mom, if she is typically calling out or not able to possibly have somebody pick up her kid, then anticipate or don't book her on a schedule past 2:00, or try to have it in pairs. So in pairs, anything after that time, if she needs to go, then you still have one person on the job. So that could be, part of the expectation for your business. And then also kind of like a follow-through approach as well of making sure that you have 2 people on the jobs past that certain time of her kid's schedule. Maybe having a conversation with her as well, to, again, have those expectations on if she has certain days that maybe she needs a little bit more assistance on, or maybe not booking her schedule past a certain time because she has to have her kids, she has an obligation after a certain time. Understanding that, having a conversation with her about that, I think that will be very helpful. Those 2 things right there we just covered, friends, and following through on your side with, having 2 people on that job, or maybe a different team on jobs after 2. Maybe she only works from this time to this time. And then again, for training, you could put in there just maybe it's a matter of how often is this happening. So then you could put in an email, I would say maybe once a quarter, depending on legit like how often it's happening, on just kind of saying, hey, just a quick reminder, you have a cool email, contractor clause inside of the contract states that, if you need to reschedule, please give us a 48-hour notice. Otherwise, we could terminate the contract and our working relationship. Something of that nature could go into an email every quarter that's being sent out to all the workers again. So that's somewhere. And then if it's happening more often, maybe it could turn into like, once every 40 days. So it doesn't seem like it's monthly, but once every 40 days, you could set that up as well. And then Karen, you could also set that up inside of our system too, if you wanted to have that email. It'd be a trigger and a campaign combo in order to set up that email. All right, so let's see, for dentist appointments, again, I would just really, that instance of just reiterating. Also, as well as another expectation, just keep in mind contractors, they have full control over schedule. They're allowed to, say, hey, I'm not available this day. And you have to be okay with that and find a different worker, whatever. The frequency of that is like a different story. But contractor wise, they are fully in right to do that with contractors. Again, that email though should really help. Again, also having that, all the other stuff that we've talked about as well too. I don't want to go into repeating that. You get the idea. All right. And then I wouldn't really be increasing her percentage, especially if you're, of course, dealing with all this other stuff. She seems very reliable. It's very hard to get licensed contractors. She's willing to get bonded and insured. She's one of, your A players. Yeah, so I wouldn't be paying her more necessarily. I mean, you could create an incentive. So like if she has a weekly, let's say she's getting paid possibly one of her top weeks. Let's say we took 300 and we times it by, 1,300. Let's actually take her lower one so it's a little bit more attainable. But if we took 1,100 and we times it by 3, let's say if you made, you could have an incentive for if you reached, $3,300 profit or, in agency settlements over the next quarter, we can go ahead and give you $100, gift card. Again, it's a gift, not an employee incentive. You're allowed to do like a gift card again. So it's an incentive. It's something to increase her to want to work more hours, that if she works more hours, she has a goal, but just make sure it's still attainable. Again, it could be a whole bunch of things. It could be like a gas card. It could just be a card in general, be something for her kids, maybe a dinner, an experience. And just, it could be like a thank you, like if you reach this amount, then we're going to throw in this, or maybe we get an extra $100 bonus, or maybe you get an extra 1%, 2%, I don't know, whatever it is, maybe an extra 10% for the next cleaning. Maybe I have seen people do that. So if they have, by Z, then for the next cleaning, it's 100% your profit, or it's 90% profit, 90% your profit. Again, like it's an incentive. It's not like you're not paying them. It came from that job. You gave up a percentage of yours. So that's another workaround when it's like giving them money, as if you were to do something of that scenario. Again, create your own scenarios. Definitely consult your own attorney. I'm not an attorney. But those are some instances on what we can do when we are talking about problems with your business. So hopefully that made sense. And again, if you have more questions, definitely submit that form. Definitely hop on another Q&A call and go ahead and hopefully pick one of your questions and dive into that. Let's see if we have any comments. Let me stop my screen share. Okay, awesome. I don't see any comments right here. Again, I'm using a new software, so who knows if it's even working, but definitely, again, make sure you use that form if you have any questions. If you want to check out some free training, definitely check out our website right here, crystalbella.co, and you'll be able to snag some of our free training, learn about our services. We are offering coaching calls inside of our Plus plan. It is a new thing that we're doing. So definitely check it out inside of there. And then hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Submit your questions and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.